I never thought I'd find myself in this situation. My name is Jake, and I'm just a regular guy married to a woman named Lisa for the last 7 years. We had what I thought was a solid relationship. Sure, we had our ups and downs like any couple, but we were good together. At least that's what I believed. Lisa was beautiful, smart, and had this way of lighting up a room. People gravitated toward her. I always felt lucky to have her by my side, but lately I'd been noticing things. Small changes at first: her late nights at work, the sudden need for me time, and an unusual interest in her phone. I brushed it off as the usual stress, but deep down, a nagging feeling began to grow. One night I was cleaning up around the house and found a receipt hidden in the back of the junk drawer. It was for a hotel, one I recognized, and the date was recent. I felt my stomach drop. Why would she need a hotel? I confronted her about it when she got home. Her response was casual, almost dismissive. "It's just for work, Jake. I told you about that." "Conference," she said, rolling her eyes. It didn't sit right with me. Something felt off, but I chose to believe her. I didn't want to jump to conclusions. Over the next few weeks, I kept my eyes open. I started noticing even more signs. The way she laughed a little too hard at her phone, the way she seemed to care more about her appearance, and the strange texts she would quickly hide when I walked into the room. Then one day I came home early from work. I figured I'd surprise her with dinner. As I walked through the front door, I heard her voice. It was cheerful, flirty even. I froze, listening as she spoke to someone on the phone. "Yeah, I miss you too. Can't wait to see you again." That was it. My heart sank. I knew in that moment she was cheating on me. The realization hit like a freight train. I felt sick. I stood there, hidden behind the wall, my mind racing. Who was she talking to? I had to know. As I heard her hang up, I walked into the living room, trying to mask my emotions. "Hey babe, what's for dinner?" I said, forcing a smile. She looked up, a flash of guilt in her eyes that quickly vanished. "Oh, just some pasta. You know how I like to keep it simple." That night I couldn't sleep. I tossed and turned, replaying everything in my mind. The laughter, the phone calls, the hotel receipt. I felt betrayed, hurt, and angry. I needed to confront her, to know the truth. I decided I couldn't let this go on any longer. I had to dig deeper. The next day I followed her. I pretended to go to work, but instead I trailed her car. My heart raced as I watched her drive to a coffee shop, one I'd never seen her go to before. I parked a block away and waited. I saw her meet a man. They hugged, and I could see the way they smiled at each other. It was the same smile she used to give me. My heart shattered. I watched as they chatted over coffee, their chemistry undeniable. I felt like I was living in a nightmare, and I was wide awake. As I drove home, I made up my mind. I needed to confront her. I had to know the truth, no matter how painful it might be. When she got home that evening, the tension was palpable. I could feel the weight of what I was about to do pressing down on me. When she walked in, I closed the door behind her, my heart pounding in my chest. "Lisa, we need to talk," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. She froze, the casual look on her face replaced with uncertainty. "What's wrong?" she asked, feigning ignorance. I took a deep breath, the words tumbling out. "Know you're cheating on me." The silence that followed felt like an eternity. Her face changed, and in that moment I could see the mask slipping. "What are you talking about?" She shot back, her tone defensive. "Don't lie to me. I saw you. I followed you to the coffee shop. I know everything," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. She opened her mouth to respond, but the excuses came flooding out, each one worse than the last. "It's not what you think. You're being paranoid. I swear it's just coffee." But I wasn't buying it. I could see the cracks in her facade. I felt the anger rising within me, a burning ball of betrayal and hurt. I wasn't going to let her lie her way out of this. That was the moment everything changed. I wasn't just angry, I was devastated. The realization that the woman I loved, the woman who promised to always be mine, had betrayed me felt like a punch to the gut. I could feel the tears welling up, but I fought them back. I couldn't let her see me break. The emotional journey that followed was a whirlwind. My mind raced between anger, sadness, and disbelief. How could she do this? How could she look me in the eye and lie? I felt like a fool for believing in her words and the life we built together. As the days went by, I struggled with my feelings. I wanted to scream, to confront her again, but what would that accomplish? I knew I had to think clearly. I needed to decide what to do next. I was living in a fog of betrayal and heartbreak. I spent countless nights replaying the arguments in my head, imagining every possible scenario. Would I confront her again? Was it worth trying to save the marriage? Or was it time to pack my bags and walk away? I had to figure it out. To be continued. The next few days were a blur. I went through the motions of daily life, but inside I was a storm. I was angry, heartbroken, and utterly lost. Every time I saw Lisa, I felt this overwhelming mix of love and betrayal. It was as if my heart was caught in a vice grip. I wanted to scream at her to make her feel the pain she had inflicted on me. But more than that, I wanted answers. Every evening when we sat together at dinner, I found myself staring at her, searching for any sign of guilt or truth. She laughed and talked about her day, completely oblivious to the storm brewing inside me. It infuriated me how easily she could switch back to being the woman I once loved. I felt like I was living with a stranger. One evening, after another hollow dinner, I decided I couldn't take it anymore. I had to confront her again, but this time I was going to do it right. No more vague accusations or half-hearted confrontations. I needed solid proof. I pulled out my phone and started to search for answers. I knew I had to find out who this guy was, and I was prepared to go to great lengths to uncover the truth. I spent nights lurking behind the computer screen, doing everything from searching her social media to trying to find any trace of this man she was seeing. It felt invasive and wrong, but I was desperate. The more I dug, the more I learned about the world Lisa had built around her lies. I discovered this guy's name, Mark, a coworker from her office. It seemed innocuous enough at first, but I didn't like the sound of it. I decided to go old school and call in a favor from an old friend who worked in IT. I told him I needed to dig into a few things for personal reasons. He agreed to help me track down some information. Within a couple of days, he had pulled up Mark's social media profiles. I studied the pictures, the interactions, and the way he looked at Lisa in the posts. I felt a sickening knot in my stomach. This guy was charming, everything Lisa would be attracted to. He had that bad boy vibe with tattoos and an edgy style. It made my blood boil. I couldn't believe she would choose someone like him over our life, our marriage. I was filled with a mix of anger and betrayal that ignited a fire in me. The next step was clear. I needed to confront Lisa with proof. I waited for the right moment. One night after she got off the phone with work, I decided to make my move. I sat her down in the living room, my heart racing as I prepared myself for the confrontation. "Lisa, I need to talk to you about something important," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. She looked up, her eyes narrowing slightly as if sensing the gravity of the situation. "What is it, Jake? You look serious." I pulled out my phone, scrolling through the pictures of her and Mark together. "I know about Mark," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. Her face paled, and for a moment I saw genuine fear in her eyes. "Jake, what are you talking about? Don't play dumb. I've seen the photos. I know you've been seeing him," I said, my voice rising. Okay, just let me explain," she pleaded, but I cut her off. "I don't want excuses. I want the truth. You promised me you'd always be mine, but you've betrayed me with this guy." I watched her face shift from shock to anger. "You don't understand. It was just a mistake. I didn't mean for it to happen," she yelled, her defenses kicking in. "Just a mistake?" Repeated incredulously. "You're telling me you've been cheating on me with him and it's just a mistake? How can you even say that?" The anger rose like a tidal wave, threatening to pull me under. I had trusted her, shared my life with her, and this was how she repaid me. "I was lonely, Jake," she said, her voice cracking. "You were so focused on your work, I felt abandoned." "Abandoned? Is that really your excuse?" I shot back, my heart racing. "You think sleeping with another man is the answer?" I could see her start to break down. Tears flowed freely now, but I felt no sympathy. "I should have talked to you instead of running off to him. I'm sorry, sorry didn't cut it. I'd loved her, and this was the betrayal I never saw coming." I sat there, my heart heavy, as she continued to plead her case. But all I could think about was the life we built together, now shattered into pieces. "I can't just forgive you, Lisa. It's not that easy," I finally said, my voice steadier than I felt. "I'll do anything to fix this, I swear," she begged. "Anything? You think that will erase what you did? You think I can just forget?" The truth hit me hard. I didn't know if I could ever trust her again. That night as I lay in bed, the weight of her betrayal pressed heavily on my chest. I couldn't sleep. I felt lost, torn between the love I still had for her and the anger that consumed me. I had to decide what to do next. I needed clarity. I needed a plan. I couldn't let this go on. I had to take control of my life. 2. Be continued. The days that followed felt like an emotional roller coaster. Lisa was desperate for forgiveness, throwing out promises and assurances like confetti, but I was stuck in a haze of confusion and hurt. She apologize, cry, and then the next moment she'd be angry at me for not getting over it. It was exhausting. I kept replaying the confrontation in my head, analyzing every word. I could see how she was trying to manipulate the situation. I was lonely, she'd said. But that didn't justify her actions. I had my own work pressures, my own challenges, and I thought we were a team. We had always promised to work through our problems together. As I took time to process everything, I started thinking about what I really wanted. The thought of separation loomed large in my mind. I'd seen friends go through messy breakups, and I never wanted to be in that position, but I also couldn't ignore the feeling of betrayal lying heavy in my heart. One night, after another awkward dinner filled with forced small talk, I decided it was time to do something. I needed to confront Lisa and lay out my feelings clearly. I invited her to sit down with me in the living room. "Lisa, I need you to understand something," I began, my voice steady. "What you did wasn't just a mistake. It shattered my trust in you. I don't want us to just gloss over this." She looked at me, her eyes filled with tears. "I know, Jake, I know I messed up, but I love you. I want to work through this. But how can I trust you again? You've broken our vows, our promises. You said you'd always be mine, but now—" I trailed off, the pain bubbling to the surface. "I'll do anything, I swear," she pleaded. I didn't know if I believed her anymore. My gut was telling me to walk away, but I didn't want to jump to a decision out of anger. "I need space to think, Lisa. I can't make any promises right now." Her face fell, and I could see the fear and desperation in her eyes. "Please don't do this. I'll change. I'll prove it to you." I didn't respond. I simply stood up and walked away, leaving her in the living room. It was hard to see her like that, but I had to stick to my decision. I needed time to gather my thoughts and determine what I really wanted. That week, I stayed with a friend, Ethan. I needed a break from the chaos. Staying at his place offered me a reprieve and a chance to think without the constant reminders of Lisa. The conversations we had were eye-opening. Ethan encouraged me to focus on myself and figure out what I valued most in life. "Dude, you deserve better than this," he said one evening as we tossed back a couple of beers. "You shouldn't have to settle for a love that isn't true." I appreciated his support, but deep down I felt torn. I still loved Lisa. Despite everything, I wanted to believe we could work things out. My heart was in a tug-of-war, and I felt like I was losing control. After a few days of soul-searching, I decided to return home. I was tired of running away from my problems. I needed to face Lisa, confront my feelings head-on, and make a decision. When I walked back into our house, it felt both familiar and foreign. Lisa was sitting on the couch, and I could see the relief wash over her face when she saw me. "Jake, I'm so glad you're back," she said, rushing over to me. "Let's talk," I said, my tone firm. We sat down, and I could see the hope in her eyes. "I've been thinking a lot," I began, trying to find the right words. "I don't know if I can forgive you. I don't want to rush into decisions, but I also can't pretend everything is okay." "I understand," she said, her voice trembling. "I'll give you all the time you need. Just please don't give up on us." I nodded, weighing the gravity of her words. "I need to know if you're willing to put in the effort to rebuild our relationship. This won't be easy." "Yes, I promise I will," she replied, her voice filled with determination. "Then I think we should consider couples therapy," I said. I felt a sense of relief in finally voicing it. "We need a neutral party to help us work through our issues and get better." Lisa looked surprised but nodded. "I think that's a great idea." I wasn't sure if doing therapy was the right path, but it felt like a step forward. We set up an appointment, and as the days passed, I watched her try to show me that she wanted to change. She was more attentive, tried to be open about her feelings, and I even caught her tossing her phone away during meals. An act that seemed small but was significant given its previous role in our troubles. But even with these changes, the shadow of betrayal lingered. There were moments when I'd catch her on her phone and my heart would race. I wanted to trust her, but every small incident felt monumental. Therapy was tough. We shared our feelings, explored our past, and the therapist helped us navigate through the chaotic emotions. I remember one session vividly. I opened up about my fears of losing her, and I could see the guilt wash over her face. It was painful, but it felt necessary. As the weeks went by, I started feeling like I was regaining control over my life, but I still had moments of doubt. I would ask myself if I could truly forgive her or if we were just prolonging the inevitable. Ultimately, I realized I needed to be honest with myself. The only way to rebuild was to acknowledge the hurt and give each other the space to grow, even if that meant facing the possibility of separation. I wasn't ready to throw in the towel just yet, and I wasn't ready to fully trust her either. I needed to keep my heart guarded while I navigated this tumultuous path. To be continued. As time moved on, my emotions continued to fluctuate like a pendulum swinging between hope and despair. Therapy sessions became a routine, and slowly I saw some progress. Lisa was making an effort to change, but I struggled with trusting that her commitment was genuine. It felt like we were in this awkward limbo, where every moment was fraught with tension and unresolved feelings. Each week, we'd sit in front of our therapist, Dr. Sullivan, who had a no-nonsense approach that I appreciated. Trust is built, not given, she would often remind us. You two have a lot of work ahead of you. Those words stuck with me, like a mantra I repeated to myself as I navigated my feelings. Lisa was doing everything she could to prove her dedication. She'd come home from work early, called me during the day just to check in, and even started planning little date nights to reconnect. I went along with it, but in the back of my mind, I was constantly questioning whether it was enough. One Friday evening, after a particularly emotional therapy session, we decided to go out for dinner. It was supposed to be a fresh start, a chance to reconnect without the shadows of betrayal hanging over us. As we walked into the restaurant, I could feel the tension lift a bit. We sat across from each other, and for the first time in a while, the conversation felt easy. We laughed about old memories, reminiscing about our first date and how nervous we both were. I felt a flicker of the warmth that had once ignited our relationship. Maybe things could get better after all. But just as I was starting to relax, my phone buzzed on the table. I glanced down and saw a message pop up from a number I didn't recognize. My heart plummeted. I opened it and my stomach twisted. It was a picture of Lisa and Mark together at a different restaurant, clearly taken recently. The world around me went silent. I felt every bit of hope drained from my body, replaced by the icy grip of betrayal. I didn't even look up from my phone as I processed the image. "Jake, you okay?" Lisa's voice broke through the fog of my thoughts. I finally looked up, and the concern etched on her face only deepened my turmoil. "Who is this?" I asked, my voice low and steady, though inside I was a whirlwind of emotions. She glanced at the screen, and her eyes widened as the realization sunk in. "Oh my God, that's not what it looks like. Really, because it looks like you're out with him." "Again," I said, my voice rising in anger. "You said you were done with him." I could feel the rage bubbling up inside me, every promise she made now feeling like a cruel joke. "Jake, please. No, you can't keep doing this. You can't keep lying to my face." My heart raced, and I could see people starting to glance our way. The anger spilled over, and I pushed my chair back, ready to storm out. "Wait, just let me explain," she pleaded, but I didn't want to hear it. I stepped outside, the cool air hitting my face as I tried to regain my composure. I paced back and forth, the image seared into my mind. How could she betray me again, after everything we'd been through? The anger roiled inside me, but beneath that was a deep sadness. I felt exposed, vulnerable, and utterly defeated. Lisa was following me, her footsteps quickening as she caught up. "Jake, please let me explain." I turned to face her. "Explain what? That you're still seeing him, that this isn't over." "I'm not seeing him. That was a one-time thing, I swear." "Then why did someone feel the need to send me that? Why are you still putting yourself in situations where you could be with him?" My voice cracked, and I felt the frustration boiling over. "I didn't think he'd be there. I didn't even know he was at that restaurant. I was out with friends," she said, desperation spilling from her words. I struggled to hold my anger back. This is just about one night, Lisa. This is about trust. You've broken it too many times for me to just take your word. Tears spilled down her cheeks, and for a moment I felt a flicker of sympathy. I don't want to lose you, Jake. I'm trying, I really am. But the weight of her betrayal felt too heavy to ignore. I don't know if I can believe you anymore. I don't know if this is salvageable. Her face twisted in pain, and I watched as she struggled for words. I'll prove it to you. I'll cut him out of my life completely. I shook my head, feeling sick. How can I trust anything you say? You've lied to me before. We stood there, the tension palpable. I could see her desperation, but I also felt the cold grip of betrayal tightening around my heart. I need time to think, I finally said, turning to leave. Jake, no, please. I walked away, leaving her in the shadows of the restaurant's entrance. I needed space to breathe, to think, and to figure out what I wanted. My heart felt heavy in my chest, the weight of the world pressing down on me. That night I went back to Ethan's place, feeling like I was trapped in an endless cycle of pain. I laid in bed, staring at the ceiling, replaying the events of the evening over and over again. I thought about my life before Lisa's betrayal, the dreams we had shared, and how everything had turned upside down in an instant. Finally, I picked up my phone and called Ethan. I need to talk, I said when he answered. Come over, he replied. As I drove to his place, I felt a flicker of hope. Maybe talking it out would help me find some clarity. I didn't want to keep living in this limbo, and I needed to figure out my next steps. When I arrived, Ethan was waiting for me at the door. What happened? He asked, concern etched on his face. I took a deep breath and let it all out. The betrayal, the anger, the pain. I needed to vent, to share the weight I was carrying. And as I talked, I felt a sense of release. Dude, you can't keep doing this to yourself. You've got to think about what you really want, Ethan said, encouraging me to focus on my own happiness. I nodded, knowing he was right. I need to make a decision. I can't keep going back and forth. It's tearing me apart. Whatever you choose, just make sure it's for you. You deserve to be happy. I appreciated his support. That night I realized I couldn't keep allowing Lisa to dictate my emotions. I needed to take control of my life again, no matter how painful the journey might be. To be continued. The following days were a whirlwind of emotions. I returned to work, where I threw myself into projects, trying to distract myself from the chaos of my personal life. But every time I glanced at my phone, I felt that familiar knot tighten in my stomach. I still had Lisa's text messages, the betrayal playing like an endless loop in my mind. I decided to take a step back from communicating with her. I didn't want to jump back into a conversation while I was still seething with anger and hurt. Instead, I focused on myself, reestablishing my own boundaries and priorities. I reconnected with friends I hadn't seen in a while, went to the gym, and even picked up a hobby I had long abandoned, painting. It felt good to immerse myself in something that was purely for me. But with every passing day, the question lingered. What was I going to do about Lisa? I realized I needed to make a clear decision. Was I willing to continue trying to make this work, or was it time to cut my losses and move on? One Friday afternoon, I sat down to write out my thoughts. I took a pen and paper and jotted down everything I felt. My love for her, the pain of betrayal, the moments that once made us happy, and the trust that had been shattered. It was cathartic to put my feelings down on paper, but it also made the reality of my situation starkly clear. As I wrote, I began to see the patterns in our relationship, the arguments, the silences, the misunderstandings. I could see that the foundation of our marriage had cracks that ran deep. I couldn't ignore that, no matter how much I wanted to. After a week of reflection, I decided it was time to meet Lisa again. I wanted to have a serious conversation about where we stood and what the future might hold. I texted her, asking if we could meet somewhere neutral. She responded instantly, her eagerness clear. We met at a small park that had always been special to us, where we had picnicked in the past and talked for hours about our dreams. Sitting on a bench, I felt the weight of the world pressing down as I prepared myself for what I needed to say. Lisa, I began, looking her in the eyes, I need to be honest about how I feel. I've spent a lot of time thinking about us. She nodded, her expression a mix of hope and apprehension. I've been thinking too. I want to make this work, Jake, I really do. I took a deep breath, feeling the tension build. But here's the thing, I don't know if I can trust you anymore. The way you've treated me, the lies, it's all too much. Her face fell and I could see the shame creeping in. I know I messed up. I'm so sorry. I know you're sorry, but sorry doesn't fix this. You've broken my trust and now I'm left wondering if you'll do it again. Just give me a chance to prove to you that I can change. I'm willing to do the work, she pleaded, her voice trembling. I felt a wave of empathy wash over me, but I had to stand firm. I appreciate that you want to try, but I need to be clear about my boundaries. I can't keep putting my heart on the line if things don't change. What does that mean for us? I think we need to take a step back. I need to know that this isn't just empty promises. If we're going to move forward, it has to be built on honesty and transparency, and that means cutting off all contact with Mark. Her eyes widened in surprise. But no buts. You can't continue to entertain those connections while trying to rebuild what we had. I need to see that you're fully committed to us. Lisa looked down, weighing my words. I could see the internal struggle on her face. I'll do it. I'll cut him off. I promise. I nodded, feeling a flicker of hope, but knowing I had to remain cautious. And I'll need time. I can't promise that we'll find our way back to each other, but I'm willing to try if you truly are. She reached for my hand, squeezing it tightly. I promise I'll do whatever it takes. Walking away from that conversation felt surreal. I had laid everything on the line, and now it was up to her to prove that she meant it. I wanted to believe in the possibility of reconciliation, but I knew it wouldn't come without effort from both of us. In the following weeks, I kept my distance while Lisa worked on trying to show me she was serious. I would receive texts from her, small gestures that were meant to prove she was changing. She sent me pictures of her later night work events where she'd chosen to leave her phone in her purse, or she'd call just to check in and see how my day was going. But every time I saw her name pop up on my phone, I felt a mix of hope and skepticism. I had to remind myself that I needed to stay guarded, even as I allowed myself to feel a tiny glimmer of optimism. Dr. Sullivan encouraged us to share our feelings openly in our next therapy session, and as much as I dreaded it, I knew it was essential. That session, Lisa spoke about her feelings of loneliness and how she had felt disconnected during certain times in our relationship. I shared my perspective as well, my desire for us to feel like partners again. But as we dug deeper, I realized something critical. The road to rebuilding was going to take longer than I had anticipated. Trust would not be rebuilt in a matter of weeks, and it would take consistent effort and open communication from both of us to move forward. One night, while reflecting on everything that had transpired, I found myself thinking about whether it was worth it to continue fighting for this relationship. I still loved Lisa, but could I truly forget the pain? So I made a decision. I needed to give us both time to heal, time to reflect, to rebuild our lives separately while still being open to the idea of a future together. I would focus on my own healing journey while giving her the opportunity to grow. In the end, I understood that relationships are complex and sometimes love alone isn't enough. To be continued. As the weeks turned into months, I found myself on a journey of self-discovery and healing. I focused on rebuilding my own life while allowing Lisa the space she needed to demonstrate her commitment. It was a delicate balance of letting go and holding on. I continued seeing Ethan and other friends, sharing my thoughts and feelings. They supported me through this tumultuous time, reminding me that I wasn't alone. I started to feel a sense of empowerment growing within me. I found solace in my painting and began attending workshops where I met new people who inspired me. The distance from Lisa allowed me to gain perspective. I learned that my worth wasn't tied to our relationship. I was capable of joy and fulfillment on my own, whether or not she would be part of my future. Lisa, for her part, continued to show me glimpses of her commitment. She cut off all ties with Mark as she promised. I could see changes in her. She was more open about her feelings, engaging in conversations that mattered. We had awkward but honest discussions about our past, which were tough, but necessary. One evening, Lisa invited me over to her place for dinner. I hesitated at first, but I agreed. As I walked into her apartment, the familiar scent of her cooking wafted through the air, and I felt a mix of nostalgia and apprehension. She had set the table nicely, and there was an air of hopefulness about the evening. As we sat and ate, I noticed that she was trying to be vulnerable, sharing her thoughts and feelings with an honesty I hadn't seen before. "I've missed you, Jake." "I've missed us," she said, her voice soft. I took a moment to process her words before responding. "I've missed you too, Lisa, but I need to be clear, I'm still healing. There's a lot of work ahead of us." "I understand. I'm prepared to do whatever it takes. I don't want to lose you again," she replied, sincerity evident in her eyes. The conversation flowed, and I found myself smiling at some of the memories we shared. It felt good to reminisce about the good times amidst the hurt that had transpired. But I also felt the wave of caution wash over me. After dinner, we sat on the couch, and for the first time in a long time I felt a flicker of hope. "I think we're on the right path, but I still need to see consistent effort," I said softly. Lisa nodded, her expression earnest. "I promise, Jake, I'll keep working on myself, and I'll show you that I'm committed to making this right." As I left her apartment that night, I felt a mix of apprehension and hope. I still had my guard up, but something inside me believed that we could rebuild piece by piece. Weeks turned into months, and we continued to attend therapy together. We made progress and fell back into old patterns, but we were committed to facing our issues together. We discussed boundaries, trust, and communication openly and honestly. I found myself becoming more comfortable expressing my emotions, sharing my fears, and opening up about my insecurities. Lisa was receptive, and I could see her desire to improve things between us. One day, during a particularly productive therapy session, Dr. Sullivan asked us to reflect on where we both wanted to be in the future. I looked at Lisa, and there was a connection that hadn't been there before. "I want to build a relationship based on honesty and respect," I said. "I want to feel secure in our love." "Me too," Lisa replied, her eyes shining with determination. "I want to create a safe space for us. I want us to be partners again." It was a pivotal moment that felt like a turning point. For the first time in a long while, I felt the weight of betrayal lift, replaced with a cautious sense of optimism. As we continued our healing journey, I learned valuable lessons about love, trust, and the importance of communication. I understood that relationships take work, and sometimes they can grow stronger after going through the fire. I also learned the importance of self-love. I was still a work in progress, but I was growing into the person I wanted to be, someone who wouldn't settle for less than I deserved. Eventually, we decided to take a trip together, something we hadn't done in ages. We went back to the place where we had our first vacation as a couple. As we walked along the beach hand in hand, I could feel the rhythm of the waves echoing the rhythm of my heart. "Look at us," Lisa said, a smile breaking across her face. "We're here together." "Yeah," I replied, feeling a warmth spread within me. "We're working on it one step at a time." In that moment, I realized that while the road ahead would still have bumps, I was willing to take the journey with her. I could see the possibility of a future built on solid ground, forged through honesty, communication, and mutual respect. Ultimately, I understood that love is not always perfect, but it can be beautiful if both partners are committed to growing together. I was learning to forgive, to trust again, and most importantly, to love myself. And in that moment, with the waves crashing around us, I felt a sense of peace. Life would go on, and I was ready for whatever came next.